welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, the only show on Indian television where you, the MSME, get center stage. This is ET Now's special daily initiative to give MSMEs and entrepreneurs the opportunity to be front and center in every industry and area that matters to you. Tonight, we're talking about food tourism and what India as a country is doing to promote its different cuisines. And we have an expert panel with us here tonight. First up, let me introduce Chef Ranveer Brar. We also have Chef Rakhi Vaswani, culinary artist and founder at Palette Culinary Studio, and Ashish Saxena, ED and CEO of Tex-Mex Cuisine. Thank you all very much for being with us here tonight to talk about what's happening in the space of food and food tourism. There's so much to talk about, but we'll attempt to pin it down to talk about food tourism. First and foremost, a lot of countries I know do promote tourism in the country based solely on their food. Is India there yet? And let me open it up to the three of you.
I think we're on the path and we are getting there because like I said, the integral marketing is all out and it's all digital, so it's all out there. So nowadays people are more into slow travel, getting into the culture, getting into the heritage and culinary tours and programs. I know for a fact that when we are traveling, we're doing that when we are traveling abroad. So the same thing is being reversed here, and I know people when they travel from abroad, that's the first thing they like to do. They like to go to the core. I mean, they'll go to the Ramgarh and they'll go to these authentic places. So yeah, I think we're kind of on that path, but I guess there's a lot to be done in that also, in that section.
Do both of you agree with that view?
Well, I think there's a long way to go, and it's not, I think it's just a question of starting late. And food scale in India overall, even if you just talk about, it's a lot to cover when you talk about food tourism. And because we've started late, it's going to take some time. And innately, I believe we are bad food marketeers. It takes the West to tell us the goodness of our food for us to accept it. A haldi doodh goes down to the West, becomes a turmeric latte. So so innately, I think as a society, the passion and pride needs to be marketed well. I think I think that's something that that's a bigger change that needs to happen for us to really take pride in something and say, what, I'll open my doors, come dine with me. Right now, it's a very, very, very thin slice of a very niche space that takes interest in food tourism.
Okay, you made an interesting point. I'll come back to that, but let me get your opening comments as well.
Sure. So I completely agree with both of them, but I have a slightly different point that tourism per se, we started about less than 50-60 years back, where we started inviting people to our country, right? And we always start with what's big and best, and that's always monuments and landmarks. So the Taj Mahal has been one of our iconic symbols of getting tourists into India, and it's just changing now. I saw a comment from Ministry of Tourism saying that we've talked about the Taj Mahal enough now, we need to talk about different things.
Yes.
So we're starting to see that happen. I saw a campaign from MP Tourism which talked about food specifically, so that's great. But long way to go. We've just started it. I think there's a lot more that can be done. We've got such a diverse cuisine from every part of India. So there's so much opportunity of talking about different types of cuisine to the world and let them come and experience it.
Fair enough. So we are doing something. There is something being done, but it's in specific pockets and we have a long way to go. I want to circle back to what you were saying. You were talking about food marketing, and I want to talk about patenting of certain food items like basmati rice, for instance. We've seen a lot of back and forth happening on that. What's going to fix that?
It's a very good question. I think, I think in terms of patenting, patenting is something that, while I agree that it allows you to retain a certain aspect of food, but it's very easy to go beyond patents, especially when it comes to cuisine. Yeah, I mean, I've tried patenting a couple of dishes, and somebody adds an extra R, and it,
so it hasn't been easy.
It is not easy. It's not easy. However, like I said, GI is a good way to go. But for me, again, the whole Rasgulla conversation, or the whole GI conversation essentially worked towards creating awareness about the Rasgulla and creating a conversation. I think it's important to start conversation.
Sure. Okay. Fair enough. I want to talk about infrastructure in any country, in any industry is very crucial. The three of you have been in this industry for a while now. How have things changed in terms of infrastructure? And maybe you can move beyond just, talking about food to talking about the entire environment, food processing, what's happening in terms of warehousing, cold press. How have things really changed on the ground? Have things been moving quick enough?
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of talk about investments going into the food processing industry as well as logistics, which is a dire need for a long years. So we are very happy to see that at least now we are seeing some action also on the ground. I think for the first time, we run restaurants and we have a cold chain which is required across 5 cities. Till about 6 months back, I didn't have a single player around all these 5 cities, and I had to use 3 different cold warehouses, manage 3 different agencies. Just a very simple example, but now at least I have one vendor who's present in all 5 cities, and I just have to talk to one person, to get that done. But in terms of the amount of food that is getting wasted in India just because of lack of this infrastructure is colossal, and we would do the world a good by just investing in the infrastructure so that the food is not wasted. It's not just about India, it's about the world. Right?
Okay, for you personally, what's the biggest change you've seen when it comes to infrastructure? Because you've been in the industry for about over 10 years now.
Right, so on the food processing side, on the agri-business side, I've seen a lot of infrastructure going into organized storage. And that's very important for grains, for soybeans and all the other crops that our farmers are really producing for us. And the wastage has really gone down in that. There's private players like Star Agri and all the others who have come in, built those warehouses, brought processes to the table so that the wastages are reduced. There's FIFO which is maintained. In terms of food processing and the restaurant side of things, the cold chains, where we are seeing food move from one place to the other in completely temperature controlled vans, and then being maintained at the warehouses. A few years back, even if a vendor was telling you he's going to maintain it at a particular temperature during transit, never happened. And when we received it, actually we had abuse which happened at the food level. And being an international chain, that's very particular to us. We don't want to be compromising on that. So we've seen a lot of that change happen. There is a lot of culture change also in terms of accepting some of these standards.
All right, time for a very quick break, but there's so much more that we have to discuss on food tourism. That's coming up on the other side. Just stay tuned. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight we're talking about food tourism and what you, the MSME entrepreneur, should know in this space. So let's talk about government policy. For anything to progress, there has to be a framework, and there is a lot of cost that needs to be done for the agriculture space in India. So let's focus this specifically on food tourism. If the government is to promote food tourism, and India as a food tourism destination and something that prides itself and as one of the top things to attract tourists into the country, the 1 or 2 things that you would want to see the government working on, and urgently?
I think the first step which has been taken is food safety. I mean, you don't want to call people and not be sure of what they're eating, and them not being sure of what they're eating. But with FSSAI in place and Mr. Agrawal doing a wonderful job at that level, I think that's one part that's being tackled. It could be speeded up, but we are also a monster of a nation when it comes to food, cuisine, and different cultural connotations, cultural relationships to food. So for all of it to be brought together universally, but it is, for me as a chef, it is the first need. I mean, trust that what you're eating is safe is the first need if we want to promote food tourism.
Okay, what about the two of you?
No, I completely agree with him. I think I have a very nice example. So we run Chili's Grill and Bar. It's 1,600 restaurants across the world. We have one outlet in Chennai where there was a cruise liner that came into the city. They were staying somewhere and they were brought to the mall where we have located. Over the next 4 days, we did twice the business that we do on those days. And why? Because the entire cruise, and this was from US of A, so the entire the visitors, wanted to come and eat chilies at least one meal. And we were very surprised because, when my manager called me and said, hey, we did, this much business today, I was like, great, but what happened? So he said, the story. And so I said, okay, I'm going to come down. And I actually spoke to one of the guests and said, he said, it's my third day and we're going back tomorrow, so I'm feeling sad that I won't be able to eat. He said, but you eat back home every day in Chile, so why are you eating here? So he said, I just don't feel safe eating in a different kind of. And
is that also a lot of perception issues?
So that's exactly what we need to change if you want to make India a tourist destination from a food perspective. A lot of Western belief about India food is it's very nice, it's very tasty, it's very spicy, but be careful, you might end up with a very case of food poisoning, so be very, very careful what we eat. In fact, we tell our guests when they come, avoid eating on roadside, it'll be very tasty food, but you may end up with a bug tomorrow. So that's a perception which we definitely need to change.
Okay, so you're saying it's more the perception than
it's obviously
it's a mix of both, right?
It's a little bit both.
Okay. It's see, if you want to say start a chain or an outlet in India, I mean the rules and regulations are not that difficult. Whereas if you was to start something in the West, I mean in Europe or in London or in Dubai, if you see the policies are, everything is in place. Like in London, an egg cannot be, consumed if it doesn't even have a stamp. So these kind of little, so that's why everyone is scared. I'm scared to eat, and people still from the West, when they travel and come here, they think India is still a country of snake charmers. And I get that because I work with so many corporates, and they love this drama, going to the street, and they love all that, but they still don't know that we have those amazing supermarkets, and we've got it all. There are pockets of everything. And that's because this is a part of our culture. But those norms have to change, as in, we need to change that whole perception.
Okay. Let me come back to talking about marketing. The Leaders of Tomorrow talks to MSMEs, SMEs and entrepreneurs across industries. 2 or 3 things that you would like to leave our viewers with in terms of tips if they are in the food space. If you want to market yourself, given it's such a fragmented industry, there's so much competition, you have people and businesses right at the bottom of the pyramid going all the way up. 2 or 3 things that you would want to leave our viewers with if they're trying to market and brand themselves in this space. I'll start with you, Ashish.
So, love of food, I think that's paramount important. If you want to be in this field, don't be in it just for the glamour or the profits, or if you don't love food, if you don't cook every day at your home, don't be in this field. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
For me, I would say that we need to change it at many levels, and if you're passionate about something, you can find a way, because when I first started, every time we travel from here to the West to learn things, whether it's a culinary course or anything, but I think we have it all here. We have a platform, we have chefs who are traveling the world and bringing that information here. So we just need to bring it out there to them. We need to showcase and need to show that we have it all here.
Okay, so if you're talking to a small business which is in this space, based on your own experience.
So at an MSME or an SME level, for me, food marketing is a beautiful space because there is no entry level barrier, right? You don't really need a lot of budgets for marketing, because it happens straight in your cell phone, and that's where most organic food marketing is happening. So I always say, stick to your gut and stick to your cell phone if you want to market your small business. The other thing between SMEs and MSMEs, small businesses and medium small businesses, is food is about pride, right? And hesitant marketing is not good, especially when it comes to food, right? Either you're proud of your food or you're not proud of your food. When you go out there talking about your, not just food, your concept, believe in it, because it reflects at the smallest level. The good thing about digital mediums, or the good thing about holding a cell phone, that it never lies. The slightest of hesitation shows. So, go into it with belief and pride. and make sure that reflects at every stage, tangibly and intangibly, when you market your business.
Okay, so
I guess in short, it's digital marketing.
Yeah, I want to discuss that in a little more in detail as we're winding down this conversation. Two things: one is of course technology and how technology plays a big role in this industry, and two is funding. Technology, both front end. You were talking about digital marketing, and I want to ask you, Raki, if there are any common mistakes that you've seen entrepreneurs doing when it comes to using digital marketing, whether it's in the food space or otherwise. I also want to talk about technology from the back end and whether we see enough entrepreneurs using that, and I can open that up to the two of you.
So what I've understood with we're every day learning and growing, and it's become, for me now, I run an academy and we bring an international certification into India. So that's what I felt was a change, and I would, because I don't want everyone, not everyone can go there. So why not bring that change here, and it's more accessible, it's more economical, and you're right there, you can be in your industry and do it. So for digital, we're learning every day something new, and I feel nowadays a chef doesn't need to only know how to cook food, we need to learn how to put it together, style it, plate it, talk about it, put it all out there. The mistake that you can make is, like he said, do your gut. So it has to be honest, true to nature. What you're doing, it's okay to portray. So you don't need to have a structure or a setup for that. You could actually be with your phone, and he's right about that. Sure. And that works brilliantly.
And is there enough back-end technology being used by entrepreneurs?
Not yet.
Not yet, not yet. I have restaurants in the US and I have restaurants in Canada. And, we have, in a lot of ways, I feel here, just because we have this resource called manpower and plenty of it, we tend to sometimes take technology for granted and just overstress ourselves for simple back-end solutions that are, that are so easily. I go back to, when I go visiting to my restaurants in the US, I'm like, right from, whether it is, we have 10 delivery platforms. Every ticket comes to me like it's coming in the restaurant. I'm not worried. My chefs are not worried where it's going. It says delivery. So the smallest of processes where we as Indians have the habit of putting in manpower as a solve already has a technological solve. We just don't go looking for it, because for us, we're used to finding, putting the manpower as a solve for it. I think we need to change that. We need to change that because it's all available. It's all out there. We just need to start using it.
Particularly for small businesses. I'll let you have the last word on funding.
So I'll just have to add on technology.
Sure,
as well.
sure. And I just want to ask you also on what's happening in terms of the funding space. I know there's a lot of funds going into companies which are in the e-commerce space as far as food is concerned. Are we seeing funding which is getting more broad-based, or what do you think will change that? And of course, you could also comment on technology.
Sure. So on the tech space, I think there is the core operations of a food processing or a restaurant. And we take it with pride that we are one of the only chains today in India which has a completely integrated backend. So we have an ERP which my finance is on, which is linked to my material management system, which is linked to my point of sale. So I can actually draw my theoretical versus actual food cost reports from the system every day. And that's something that even Chili's in the US, for example, is not able to do. So we've taken technology, we've taken it really to our heart, and we've built a platform where everything is integrated, is easy to move, and lives become so simple. Managers who used to report a variance of 0.2, 0.3, when it comes from the system, it's 1.5 and 2%. So doing in Excel versus actually doing it in a system is really an eye-opener. On the funding side, we are obviously seeing a lot of excitement. We did see about a couple of years back food tech space getting really hot. All the delivery platforms, everybody got money by the tons, and they're out by the tons as well already. So a lot of the money went into marketing, a lot of the money went into customer acquisition, and we at TVS Capital, for example, firmly believe that there was no value which was being added in that space just by making an app. I think everybody who got into that space, who got funding, believed that just make an app and you created value. I think in the chain you are not really adding value unless you were able to either reduce the cost of food or reduce the cost of delivery. You were really not adding value. You were only taking what was being cooked by the restaurant and delivering it to the customer. So we've seen all of that really dried up, but what has come out of that is that there are sustainable business models around delivery. and Swiggy and Zomato are showing that there is money to be made here. Uber Eats has come to India now, and they are experimenting still. I'm not sure they've scaled up yet fully. So that's good, because then that's seeing that investment of last mile, and with the new generation binge watching everything at home, delivery is important piece of the whole thing. On the restaurant side, again, a lot of investments in the last couple of years in chains to scale up. We, for example, there is Massive, Zoravars, Azure's got funding. So we're seeing that scale up happening by restaurants, which is great. India doesn't have still a chain which is 5,000 crores in top line. We're looking forward to that. So there are lots of these chains in the US, and
so the trickle-down effect, of course, will then take time in terms of what comes into the smaller businesses as far as funding is concerned.
No, absolutely. So, but I think in the smaller businesses, we're seeing more venture kind of stuff happen in the tech space and even on the ground.
All right. Ranveer, Rakhi, Ashish, thank you all very much for being with us here tonight. If you have any feedback for us on food tourism, as well as food tech and the food processing industry, do remember you can always write in leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com. Tweet at us at LOT_ET now, or Sunanda_J. That's my personal Twitter handle. On Facebook, we're at Leaders of Tomorrow on ET now, or call us on that number you see on your screen. We love hearing from you. Thanks very much for watching. Have a good night.